Good morning and welcome to Saturday Morning Comic Talk, where we talk some random topics with some great creators out there. And then at the end, we go in and talk about the campaigns that they have up and running right now. So this morning, we're going to have two great creators. So Scott, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Scott Harris King, and I'm a comic creator. I mostly do writing, but I also do some art and some interiors, some covers. And right now, my fantasy comic Quest is currently live on Kickstarter, issue 4. I also have a series called The Crime Busters. We've done 6 issues of that so far, with 7 will be out next year. I've done a couple issues of Cthulhu versus Uncle Sam. So, just living the dream, making comics, and excited to talk about comics today.
Excellent. Yeah, I think I have your Cthulhu versus Uncle Sam ones. Those are fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing them, and people seem to really respond to that. So I'm hoping to get a 3rd issue out sometime soon. But it's always hard to I've got 3 ongoing series, so trying to do the scheduling on that can be kind of difficult.
Oh yeah, I understand that. And then is it DC? Deese. All right, Deese, tell us about yourself, please.
Yeah, my name is Deese Casillas. I am internationally touring stand-up comedian. I'm a writer, author, published some books, worked for a lot of shows you may have seen or websites you've read on. And now I'm publishing my first comic book, Kill Stan, which is available now on Kickstarter.
Excellent. Yeah, I see that you're funded, so that's great. Now it's just building it up, getting those stretch goals unlocked. So yeah, congratulations on that. And we're just going to start going through our topics. So our first topic for the day is if you could see any sci-fi technology from any of the movies or books come into the real world right now, which one would you want to see put into the real world? So Scott, which sci-fi technology would you like to see made a reality?
I've thought about this a lot. I love to travel, so I would like teleporters. Like it would be super useful, to just be able to step into a little tube. Like the Justice League when they go up to their satellite headquarters, you just step in the tube, and then the next thing, 5 seconds later, you're in Paris or you're in Tokyo or wherever you're going. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's actually where I was gonna go too. It's like, all right, but we know we've seen the Fly. None of us want to become Brundlefly, so get that shit figured out before you drop me in the tube. But that's definitely where I would want to go too. It's like I love the idea of just like, all right, I was sitting in traffic the other day, like, damn, teleportation would be beautiful right now. I'm sitting in LA traffic, nothing's moving. It's you're trying to go 4 miles down the street and it says your ETA is 45 minutes. It's like teleportation would be a beautiful thing right about now. So Deese, what's your sci-fi technology you would like to see brought into the real world?
Well, I thought about this a lot, and my initial reaction and thought was also the same as Scott's, was like teleporter. I like to travel. I travel for a living. It'd be so easy to just get where I want to be instantly. But then I thought, when you're traveling for leisure, what are you going to do when you're there, right? So I'm like, way better solution, holodeck. I don't have to go anywhere. It all just comes to me, baby, Plus, then, you can hang out with John Stamos or whatever you're into, or Kim Kardashian. I don't care. You can, you got it all right there. It just comes to you.
Yeah. I mean, that works too, because where you don't have to leave the comfort of your own home, and there you are, whatever you want's right there, sitting there. So yeah, I thought about that too, because I knew teleportation was going to be the popular one. So I always go last. So where I came up with is, okay, I've seen Ready Player One. I would love that technology brought into the real world. I mean, granted, we would all just be sloths. We wouldn't move. We'd be couch potatoes, because like everything I need is out here in these goggles. I have the suit so I can feel and experience everything. And then, I can be riding in a DeLorean. I can be, forming Voltron, whatever the hell I feel like. I'm doing it right there in those goggles. I mean, granted, I'll probably end up starving to death and be a skeleton on the couch. I'd be way too intrigued with that technology, and the real world would start getting less and less appealing, kind of like we see in the movie. But I don't know. I'm going to take my self-will and think I can give it a try and still function in two worlds. But yeah, I would love to just the technology to live in whatever fantasy world you've seen, just put on those goggles and it's as real as the world in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems like the best answer. Maybe we're doing that right now. We don't even know it.
Yeah. Right now, this is the Matrix. We have to figure this out.
Yeah, this is just like beta version. It's not the best version yet, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, hopefully they improve it down the generations, because if this is the Matrix, I want a refund. Put me in that world eating the slop.
Yeah, but this could be exponentially better than what the real world is, so you never know.
True. We could get out like, oh shit, I was wrong. Drop me back in. Like I'm completely mistaken that this is the actual paradise we're walking around in, and who knew? Right.
Yeah, and in the Matrix, the price of gas could be $6 a gallon, instead of $5. What a bitch.
Yeah. So you must be in California if you're saying $5 a gallon.
No, actually, luckily I am in Texas. We pay about $2.50 a gallon. But I was just up in Washington State doing on tour, and man, it cost me about $75 to fill my tank instead of $35. So.
Oh yeah, that's my reality. Because in California, it's like you get excited if you see something in like the threes, like ooh, $3.98, yes, bargain. Yeah. And then I traveled out to Tennessee over the summer, and everything's in the twos. I'm like, ooh, ouch. That
makes a big difference. Yeah, well, I grew up in LA, and I lived there in like 2000. Probably like, what was it? Like probably 2006, 2007, when gas prices were over $5 a gallon. I mean, that was damn near 20 years ago, and you're over $5 a gallon.
Yeah, seems to be the reality. You'll get that little shrink, and you're like, oh yes, finally it's going down, and then just right back up. So you kind of learn to exist in the reality of $5 gas, and you travel accordingly.
Just bought a hybrid, baby. It's way better.
No, that's the way to go.
If we had teleportation, we wouldn't have to worry about any of that anymore.
See, there you go.
We had a hollow, but we're talking about being in the Matrix. Then we don't even need. We're here.
Yeah.
Well, we could be in the Matrix, but also if we're in the Matrix, we might as well program in the teleportation. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, let's get that, because if we're in the Matrix, I still don't want to have to drive through LA. So let's get the teleportation or the holodeck or my goggles, and I'm like, all right, let me just throw the goggles on, and the goggles throw me at whatever concert I wanted to go drive to, and hey, I'm already there, and there's the band they're playing, and you could be doing your sets right in the goggles. Like, all right, I'm going to stand up around the world, but I just throw the goggles on and do my sets there. So yeah, whatever we want to do, it seems like we all want to just get the hell off the roads.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All right. So our second topic today is your dream writing job. So if you got picked to write for any comic, TV show, book, some author or company came to you and said, I'm going to give you the job to write anything you want. What's the job that you're going to pick? What's the book or show that you would want to be writing for? And it would be, you're going to elevate this material to a new level. What's your dream writing gig?
That's a good question. I had been thinking about this mostly in comic book terms. In a weird way, I'm already doing it, because I think ultimately I mostly would want to do my own characters. Having said that, I do a lot of work with like public domain characters. So I'm a big fan when it comes to like comics, specifically of the more offbeat characters. Mm-hmm. My favorite era is like the early 70s, beginning of the Bronze Age, where you have all these new sort of like anti-heroes. So characters like Ghost Rider and Jonah Hex, Deathlock, sort of a little bit more off the beaten path characters. So, ultimately, I think my answer, I guess, would be, again, I'm thinking most of this in terms of comics, is Warlord. Mm-hmm. Warlord's one of my favorite series. It was one of the first comics I ever bought was Warlord. And it was one of the big inspirations for Quest when I started working on Quest. You know, I was like, I want to tell stories like Warlord, you know. So I would love to be able to do a Warlord series. You know, it's a little bit tricky because the character's so identified with the creator, Mike Grell. They did one Warlord series in like 2008 or so, I think it was. It might have been earlier than that, where they had a different creative team, where like Bart Sears was doing the art. I forget who was writing it, and it didn't work very well. So it's hard to say whether anybody other than Grell should really do the character, but if they decided they wanted to do a Warlord revival, I would be all over that. I would love to do that.
Awesome. So Dees, what would your dream writing gig be?
Oh man, I was thinking about this in terms of comic books also, as opposed to anything. If we're talking anything, I would want to have control of the Bible franchise. I think some follow-ups to that would be really fun. You know, we could really take it in some interesting directions. Jesus comes.
The Book of Dees. Yeah, there you go.
Let's do this. Why does it stop at Revelations? There's so much more. But if we're talking comic book terms and not, you know, my characters and the things I've created and want to pursue, you know, I kind of was looking at this as like, these are established characters, you know, Marvel, DC, someone wants to give you a shot. I'm about the X-Men. I would want to write the X-Men. I've got a, I'll call it I'll call it like a 10-year Bible, but it's more like a manifesto. It reads more like a manifesto of Ted Kaczynski, but of what I'd like to do with the X-Men over, I mean, literally hundreds of issues for the entire franchise that I would renovate it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the X-Men, I mean, there's so many possibilities and places you can go because you can create some new characters, play around with the old ones, and there's so many characters that, you know, you can showcase that people wouldn't even know. So yeah, that would be a fun one to kind of get your chance to revamp. And some of the big writers have had that chance. Like, all right, Joss Whedon got his run on it, and Grant Morris. So it's, you know, the writers who get it, they can take it to new places. And usually they'll tinker with it so much they're like, okay, that's not actual continuity. We're going to erase that and say that, you know, this didn't actually happen in the X-Men universe because you know, Charles Xavier's walking again, or someone major is dead. But if you can play with it and know, okay, I can play with it as much as I want, and they'll probably just erase it when it's all said and done, you could have a good time with X-Men. Yeah,
the retro, you know, the retcons are plentiful these days, and I think that's part of the thing. You know, I'm such an X-Men nerd. I've read it all, literally anything X-Men related, even like Dazzler, Captain Britain, everything. I mean, and that's part of the problem with that is there was a time when they were streamlined and every character had like rich and consistent characterization in between writers. Morrison was kind of the start of the crumbling of the actual X-Men franchise. Not to say I didn't enjoy his run, but it really hasn't been X-Men since Morris, you know, 2001, in my opinion.
Well, so you have the chance to make it X-Men again.
Yeah.
So just to jump in on that, like if you were asking me this question 20 years ago, I would have said Avengers, because I grew up a huge Avengers fan in the 80s and 90s. I've got a complete run of Avengers. I used to own, at the time, every comic the Avengers had appeared in up until, like, you know, 1996. But I hated everything that Bendis did with New Avengers so much that I quit the book forever. And since then, you know, after the movies came out and Avengers became so popular, they put out so many different Avengers series. It's like everyone in the Marvel universe is a member of the Avengers. So it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's just the name they slap on anything they want to sell. So it's kind of similar, I guess, to what Dees was saying about there's so many changes and it's just sort of, you know, gone sideways. I would love to write the Avengers circa, you know, 1978, but I wouldn't want to write them anymore. I wouldn't want. I think there's no coming back, at least for me, from what they've done over the last couple decades. It's not the same book anymore.
Yeah, and they do those things like we got the Batman 89 where they're writing it straight from that universe. So you could kind of write the Avengers 84 and, say, okay, everything that happened after, we're just going to forget about that and we're going to pick it up from one particular story arc. So that they seem to do that a lot because they realize, okay, we've mangled our own creation to a point. It's unfixable. So let's just give it, back to a generation when people still loved it. And, it's things where it would be fun to write it before it got completely destroyed. Like you were saying with X-Men, it hasn't been the same since then. So for my pick, I would love to do a chance at Batman. Not because, there's good Batman runs, there's bad Batman runs, more bad than good, it seems like lately, but that was kind of the comic that made me start loving comics, that and Spider-Man. And when I was younger, those would be the ones that I read the most. And I think there's still stories to tell because you figure, all right, through when The Dark Knight Returns came out, Batman was in a rough spot and it looked like, okay, people are done with Batman, it's falling apart. And then he kind of brought it back in a way that got people excited about Batman again. And that became the only Batman we saw, was kind of that gritty Frank Miller Batman for a while. But I think there's life you could breed into any of these, but it comes down to telling a different story without just like, okay, we're just going to tell a different story with nothing but shocks and, just try to make it too edgy or weird. So how do you tell it and have the purists still love it? Because I think the purists have fallen off of a lot of the series that they grew up loving.
Yeah, I think the problem is that fanboys are awful, and like the worst people in the world. Like they're the type of people that would complain about a blowjob and a steak. You're like, Jesus, man, take it. I always take it back to the X-Men. Like, again, I'm an X-Men nerd. I love it. I love so much of it. And since Morrison, I like Morrison's run. I think it's just bad X-Men comics. I think it was really good comics, just bad X-Men comics. Mm-hmm. And I've liked a lot of runs since then. But they're kind of up and down as far as quality of X-Men comics. But I also, it's like with any run, these older fans are so angry about any change. But then if you make it the same, they're mad that it's just the same thing repeated. Yeah. I don't mind fundamental changes in the core of a book, like the Krakoa era of X-Men, right? This recent thing Hickman did was like a huge status quo change, and a lot of old school fans hated it. I'm like, no, that's an interesting take. Like, I don't really think the execution of it was that great. There were good parts of it, but I'm like, I'm down for take a big swing. Like, let's do, as long as it's a good story, I don't care how big the swing is. If it's just about the execution, it's comic books. You can literally do anything. You just have to be able to make the story reasonable and palatable for the audience. But I think some fanboys are just you can't help them. They're just mad no matter what you do.
And in the past, they would have had to take the time to write a letter that might get put into the back of the book, mail that letter, and by the time they got through the process, the rage was gone. Now they just run to the keyboards and attack, and it's just easier to hate now. Because if you go back into those old comics and you read the letters in the back, there's some people that are pissed off about choices that are made, but they're more well thought out in their anger.
Yeah, well, it's also not like, because you couldn't get the mob mentality too, so it became where if someone online wants to be mad because, if some 40-year-old dude who loves comic books, and I say that as a 40-year-old guy, is mad because the new Miss Marvel show, they don't like it, and you're like, yeah, it's a story about a 13-year-old Muslim girl coming of age in New York. Maybe it's just not for you, right? There's things that maybe you're not in the demographic for. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think with the easy instant technology and like you say, that mob mentality, because all of a sudden you go out, you have a subreddit that's attacking something, and they're just, you know, whoever the creator is, if they read it, they're just going to break down in tears. So it's like, yeah, just avoid reading about your stuff. I guess that's the key, because the mobs will come after you. I mean, I guess we're small enough that the mobs don't know we exist, but if you rise up, if you start to elevate your project, you'll find someone who hates it, and they'll find a group of people who agree with them, and you'll get torn down. So I guess that's the disadvantage of growing bigger.
Well, I would say like one of the advantages we have is that we're working with our own creations. You know, if I do something with my characters that someone doesn't like, what they might be unhappy with the story, but there's not really much they can say. But if I do something someone doesn't like with Batman, everybody feels like it's their character as well. Like everyone has a sense of ownership about these big properties. So, I mean, there was a time when I felt that way again about Bendis's Avengers. I was just livid with everything that was happening there. And the answer eventually for me was, to stop buying anything that Marvel put out. So, it wasn't worth getting angry, because ultimately, they aren't my characters. And they had a different direction they wanted to go in the story, but I mean, it would be a nice problem to have, to get so big that people are upset about the choices you're making in the stories. But I feel like it's a little bit different with the self-owned, creator-owned characters.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I'd agree with Scott. I would say, kind of adding on that, I would love for someone to be invested enough in my characters and creations that they were mad about creative choices, because that just means they're passionate about it. That just means they truly care that much that, a direction you've gone, they don't feel is the right direction. And at the end of the day, it's your character, your autonomy to do whatever you want. And, you want people to read it, but you're also, if you're, I think most creator owned independent creators would say they're really doing it for their own passion and the stories they want to tell. You might get to a point where you're Spawn, arguably the largest independently owned property out there. That's and you might hear things that the fans say, and Todd McFarlane might take that into consideration when making a story. Whereas when you're smaller and newer, it's like, no, I'm just telling this story. This is my art. But if someone loved it enough that they were angry about it, that at least we've evoked emotion from them, and that is still a win in a sense, in my opinion,
because we're the people that are creating indie comics. They're not doing it for the large paycheck. They're doing it for the passion of their story, because you're going into all of these measures to tell the story that's been in your head.
Right.
And like you said, if someone got that passionate about it, and there's a couple moments that I know in Immortal Era are going to piss people off badly, but that's okay, because there was one issue that it kind of scares people away. Issue 3 is where they either keep going or they're like, oh shit, that guy went way too far. But I've talked to people who say, look, I hate that decision you made, but I see why it's important for the story. And when you engage with someone like that, because that's the beauty of when you do the cons, especially if I do the same kind of circuit of Southern California cons where you see the same people. Well, now they're coming up to you. They're not buying anything because they have all your books, but they want to talk about, okay, what about this and what about that? And just to hear someone passionately discussing your book, whether they agree with your decisions or not, it feels so amazing, because your stories engage their mind, and you're something they think about when they're just on their own. So to think that your story's in their head, it's amazing.
Your project worked. What you were shooting for worked. You hit the bullseye. The reaction was just different. But And yeah, I think that is a kind of a weird compliment in an odd way too.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess if it became down to like a subreddit of hate, that might be a different feeling. But if someone disagrees with you and they want to come and debate you at the table, then that's fine.
Yes.
And for a lot of times they'll say something and be like, okay, that does get explained later on, but of course we're not Marvel, so we're getting them 3 or 4 books a year at best instead of 12 new issues. Where if it was Marvel, we'd have that question answered in 3 months. Instead, now you got to wait 9 to actually get the answer you were looking for.
Yeah. I listen, I've been doing stand-up comedy for 17 years. I've had a lot of people disagree with me about things I've said. So I'm not, I think I'm not that way. At this point, I'm like, it's fine. We can.
Yeah, that's got to be a scary thing right now, because anything you can say in stand-up can come back on you because everyone's filming. And next thing you know, like, oh, why the hell am I on Instagram with people saying I'm the most vile human being alive?
Yeah. Hey, listen, I've had people jump on stage and try to take a swing at me before. So.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. It's always the person who's always been the most mad at me at shows is always middle-aged white ladies. So, it's fine. Like, that's the thing. I don't read comments, and I also don't like those people who are going to be mad and upset. Like, it doesn't matter what I do, they're never going to be my fan. So I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You're not a real person. Like, I don't, just like, you do your thing, I'll do mine.
You experienced Karens before people knew what Karens were. You're like, okay. Yeah. I found Karens, discovered them as they were trying to beat me up on stage.
It's a real thing.
All right. So our last topic before we head into the campaigns is, all right, if you get to be a wrestler and you're coming into the ring, what is your entry song going to be? When you're walking into the ring, what are you walking into? What's the song that you're coming into as a professional wrestler? So, Scott, what's your wrestling entry song?
I thought about this, and I kind of was of two minds. Part of me thought I should have like a song that you don't expect. So like I come out and the lights are flashing and it's like the theme to Sesame Street or something. But I think my song would be, I'm a big fan of Tool. It's my favorite band. They have a song called Descending, which I listened to on repeat when I was making Quest, like literally just listen to that song like 1,000 times, because it's sort of the feel of the stories that I want. So I think that would probably be the song that I would have when I was coming out into the ring.
Yeah, that's a good one. I love Tool as well. So you say that, it's like, okay, I love that you're saying that you have a song that you kept playing when you were writing your book, because I had the same thing. It wasn't a song, but it was a live show that I actually recorded, and it was of the band Godspeed You Black Emperor, and I recorded their full set when they played at this little church in LA, and I played that on repeat the entire time I was writing like the first 2 issues of the book, and that was the only thing I played. So it was kind of like with the Tool song, that was the only soundtrack to that book that you could go with. And and I would try, I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop playing this thing, I'm going to play something different. I'm like 2 songs in, it's like, no, back to what I was playing before. So yeah, I love that you have the same kind of thing. It's like, okay, this is the soundtrack of the book. And if there were ever to be a movie, I talked about this a few weeks ago, that was one of our topics, like who's doing the score for your comic book movie. It would have to be songs that they played that night, and because those were the songs that fueled the book's creation overall. So yeah, I love that one, and it's a great song. So it'd be a good wrestling entry song. So Deese, what's your wrestling entry song?
I would say, given today's current news cycle, anything by P. Diddy would be real daunting when you're walking for your opponent, when you're walking into a wrestling ring in a little sweaty, a little juiced up. You got just a singlet on, or maybe just a Speedo. That could really, the implication for your foe in the ring would, I think, be very daunting. Oh, I think we froze up.
I'm still here, but I think Ed froze.
Ed, we lost Ed. California
he was so shocked by your song choice that it just froze him in carbonite.
Yeah. The feds are raiding this live stream to figure out what we know about P. Diddy and his recent actions and freak off parties. Ed, are we going to come? He's maybe California just got hit by a giant typhoon, something, anything.
Well, I guess we'll wait for him. It's interesting. I'm simul streaming this on my channel, so I don't know how this is gonna. I don't know if it's like gonna hand over the controls to me because I'm still streaming on mine.
I don't know. He'll probably I assume he'd cancel out and rejoin would be the if he can. Well, here we go. We're here. There he is.
Sorry about that.
I just assume that the feds listen and anything with the word P. Diddy, they immediately.
Yeah, you got me kicked off my own stream. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, well,
no, that's it's fucking stupid too because my internet's at full strength. I'm plugged in, like all the things they tell you to do, and here I am. So hey,
you're in Southern California. It's probably just a rolling brownout.
Yeah. I had that happen on one of my streams. We got browned out. I'm all of a sudden. I had to rush and get it onto my phone. I'm like, I'm hosting this. I can't just disappear.
Yeah. So
yeah, P. Diddy, that would be you could be the perfect wrestling villain if you're walking in with that. You're gonna get shit thrown at you for sure. So that's good. They're like you're gonna get booed, people are gonna be throwing stuff. But if you're the wrestling villain, that's kind of what you're going for. It's like, all right, that's the aim. I want you to hate me, and instantly you're hated by everyone in that arena.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good one. So for mine, I kind of thought in the more serious thing, and I was thinking just kind of going with like Master of Puppets from Metallica. Just that opening riff just kind of gets you pumped up and ready to go. And yeah, I thought of other songs like, all right, like more indie songs. There's one by a band, We Were Promised Jetpacks, called Roll Up Your Sleeves. I really like the opening to that one, but it's like, all right, obscure indie guy's going to be as unpopular as P. Diddy guy. They're like, all right, you fucking know indie songs, go to hell. And they're going to throw shit at you.
I had tickets to see We Were Promised Jetpacks here in Boston a few years ago, but I wasn't able to go to the show because I do like some of their songs. So I've never heard anyone mention the band before.
Okay.
That's a fantastic band name, by the way.
Yeah, I love the name. It's like, okay, the name alone kind of sells you. Like, all right, I want to actually hear some of this music because so many band names are terrible, but that one is great. And yeah, their band, I was insanely passionate about their first CD, and then their other ones, I kind of lost a little bit of interest. But I can still, when I want to get pumped up, if I'm out on a run or something, I can toss that song on, and it kind of brings the energy back in. So you're probably the first one I've talked to, Scott, who actually knows that band. Most of the time when I talk to people about what bands I'm going to see, I just get the blank stares until once in a while I'll go see a mainstream band like, oh yeah, I know them. I like Tool. I know Tool. I love Tool, but 99% of the other bands I'm talking about, they look at me like I've lost my mind, but that's okay. I'm not listening to music for them. All right, so that is our topics for the day. So now we're going to dig into your campaigns. We're going to get a chance to look at the 2 campaigns that you have going right now, and you can tell us about them, and we can hopefully get some backers to go in there. I'm the sucker host who backs everyone who comes on the show. So at least you'll get one. You're guaranteed to get my pledge. So
great. I've got a catch-up bundle. It's where you can get all the variants. It's $379. So I appreciate your support, Ed.
Yeah, see, you're right there. I'm in. Why not?
Yeah.
How can I say no to $379? That is a bargain.
It's got 30 variant covers for all the variants that I've done for all 4 issues so far. But all right. Yeah. So
let's take a look. We don't need to see my alert. So this is Quest. You can tell us about your 39, did you say, variants that you have available?
Yeah, well, that was for the whole series. So for this,
you want everything, every cover that's been made. That's your chance to get it.
That's your chance if you're a hardcore collector. Quest is kind of my love letter to Dungeons and Dragons, epic fantasy. As I mentioned earlier, I love Bronze Age comics, particularly Bronze Age fantasy stuff. So Conan and Red Sonja, Warlord, like all of those great books. So Quest is basically it's like a D&D campaign. You have a ragtag party of adventurers who are thrown together by fate in the first issue and charged with an impossible quest to save their world. And over the course of the series, they basically have to travel through like 1,000 miles of wilderness that are filled with, you know, dungeons and monsters and dragons and like evil wizards and stuff to get to their destination. As the series progresses, we're going to have new party members come in. We've already had several characters die. In this issue, we're introducing a whole bunch of new characters that join the quest. And you'll see the characters sort of level up. So they'll get stronger, you know, better equipment, and they'll be fighting harder and harder monsters, because I really wanted to give it that feel like you're in a D&D campaign. So you may have seen, if you're familiar with Dungeons & Dragons, one of the variant covers looks like an old D&D module from the 80s.
Yeah, I saw that was really cool. I'll go back to that. I saw those ones and it said, okay, I recognize those from back in the day when I would be playing it as a kid. So
yeah, so this
one
is
right
the,
here.
the
Yeah,
RPG
there we go.
edition. And so with this variant, it's limited to 200 copies, but it's not just a variant cover. In addition to the comic, there's also 8 pages of gaming supplement material, including a mini module and rules for how the different classes work in this world. So after you read the comic, you can actually play through the story from the comic in your own home game if you're playing D&D. And that's proven to be sort of the most popular reward. That's the one that a lot of people get, that particularly at conventions, people see the module covers, and I explain you can actually play the comic. And you know, people seem to really enjoy it. So you know, and then one thing that I do that we'll see here as you're going is that I haven't really seen anyone else do this for whatever reason, is I do variant covers for every issue, like a lot of people, but I actually do a series of variant covers. So for instance, you can see here, you can get the D&D variant for every issue. And I have people that just, you know, they buy the whole series, but they just get this variant. Okay. And I've got other ones. So like you may remember back in the early 80s, there was the TSR had the Endless Quest series of, they were like choose your own adventure books, but for D&D. I've got a series of variants that I do one every issue that looks like those covers. That's the one coming up here. So those book covers. And then I have another series that I do, and you can see all the previous issues here. So you can get like the set of 4. And then I do these Bronze Age covers, so they look like comics from the 70s. And I do one of those for every issue, with Vest is the paladin, the main thing. So you can see it looks like the old Conan covers.
Oh yeah.
And again, I've got people where, you know, they've got all 4 issues, but instead of getting the regular covers or like random covers, they'll just get the Bronze Age cover every issue, or they'll just get the Unending Quest. I personally love to do that. And here we've got, you know, this is the 5th anniversary. I've been doing this for 5 years now. So everything I'm putting out this year and probably next year has one of these 5th anniversary covers that looks like the Marvel 25th anniversary covers from 1986. So you can collect not just the issues of Quest, but from all of my different comics you can get across the board. And once you have several of them together, it starts to, you know, look really cool.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy it. You know, most of what I do is I make stuff that I want for my own collection. I am a big collector. I've got a lot of back issues. And so when I think of something that I'm like, oh, it'd be really neat to have my comic with this cover or, you know, whatever, I'll basically make it because I want it for myself. And, you know, I think if you make stuff that you're passionate about and that you love, the people will respond to it. And that's been the case so far, is, you know, with these variants. And some do better than others. But like, you know, the Bronze Age variants, you know, I don't sell as many of those as the other variants, but I love the Bronze Age, so I want them for my own collection. That's sort of my guiding principle with all the stuff I do, is like make the stuff, you know, I don't try and play to the market or try and figure out, well, what do people want. I just sort of be like, what do I want? And and it feels more authentic. I think people can see that, you know. So we're running through the 18th of October. We're 50% funded. So I'm optimistic that we're gonna hit the goal. I've already got the art done for issue 5. It just needs to still be colored. So I've got it's an ongoing series. I've got a lot of stuff planned going forward, but we'll have issue 5 out in the spring. So this is a perfect time to jump on board, particularly because we're introducing some new characters that are coming in. So it's a great time to get in, and I have those discounted catch-up bundles for people, so you can get all 4 issues with the combined shipping, or if you get digitally, you can get them all at a discounted rate, so you can just catch up on the whole series, which is almost 100 pages now. So it's a good block of adventure reading. So
And how many issues are you planning for this series? What's the overall story going to be?
That's a great question, because what I'm finding is I tend to think in terms of huge epics.
Mm-hmm.
And I have obviously I knew how it started and I know how it ends, but it's a little open-ended for me in terms of how long it's going to take to get there, because I'm thinking of new stories, but more importantly, as I'm sort of going along, I really want to dig more into the characters and into their sort of backstories. And that's going to it might take more space. So I don't really know how many issues it's going to be. With my other series, the Crime Busters, I know the story that I'm telling in Crime Busters, even though I do individual issues are self-contained for that series, there's a background storyline that's going to be 30 issues total. But with Quest, honestly, I'm not really sure how long it's going to take. I know where I'm going with it.
Mm-hmm.
But sort of like the characters in the story, I'm not quite sure where the journey is going to take me, and so I'm not quite sure how long that's going to be.
So it could be 10 issues, could be 100, but you have your ending already ready to go.
Yeah, I know exactly where I'm going with it, and I just need to figure out how long I'm going to be alive to determine how long it's going to run.
Yeah, don't do a Robert Jordan on this. You gotta live to tell the whole story.
Yeah,
or get the ghostwriter to come finish it for you.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I don't want to get to the next to last issue and then, I'm 96 years old and I'm we're going to try and finish it up a little sooner than that. Yeah. But I'm a big fan of ongoing series. Longer the better for me. So as long as it makes sense for the characters and for the story, we'll let it play out in a natural pace, I guess.
Perfect. All right. So, Dees, tell us about Kill Stan.
Yeah, Kill Stan is, I call it a neo-noir crime thriller, which may be I don't want to say misleading, but maybe reductive, I would say. Really, the story is, kind of the main slug line is suicide by vigilantism is the premise. About a guy, regular guy, nothing to live for, decides to go out. He doesn't really have the balls to kill himself, so he decides to go out and he assumes vigilantism will kill himself in one night. He ends up lasting a little longer than he thought he would, and things go awry from there. Realistically, the story, there's vigilantism and there's an antagonist and all that, but the real meat of the story is a character piece about Stan. It's about trauma, loss, kind of the feeling of helplessness and hopelessness that everyone feels when they're at their end of the rope and don't feel like they know what to do next, and what extremes people go to when they really have nothing left to lose. That manifests in a lot of different ways. And, this story came out of a couple things. The suicide of my best friend, another comedian, who was, another just comic I knew, one of my best friends for years. And also, a lot of stuff that I saw during COVID with people, really for different reasons, feeling like they'd lost everything, whether lost family, they lost their business because of lockdowns, or financially, and people just never, I don't think anyone really has truly recovered from that time in our country, whether they realize it or not. There's still a lot of residual trauma that people are dealing with, and life fundamentally changed really drastically for a lot of people. And I don't think they even realized that, because it was like this slow trickle. So yeah, it's about, that's why I feel like this is something that, whether you read comic books or not, whether it doesn't matter what kind of comic books you read, if you read this, I think people will find it very intriguing, because it really is not ask the superhero, or not even super, but the hero, the fight, the vigilante. It's about what we all go through and struggle with on our trying to find some sense of normalcy and place in life.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you have a lot of deeper themes in that, it's hidden in your vigilante story. So
yeah, I mean, that's the most interesting part about comic books to me, is that, you can take, it's a medium with where you can do fantastical things, but tell very core stories, like I don't want to just tell a story of a bad guy fighting a good guy and then the good guys win and, some things happen like this. I want to tell stories that have like some depth and meaning to what these people are doing and how that affects the reader, how the things that have gone through the journey of the characters in there. And there's, you can use really interesting vehicles to tell very human stories. You can, that's always the most interesting part to me. Like, again, going back to being an X-Men fan, growing up on Chris Claremont, the boring stuff to me was always the fights with the villains. The interesting part was the character interactions, the character development, the characterization, and what these people were going through as people with these extreme situations going on around them, and how that could be relatable to just a normal person reading it. That being able to connect those dots was so fascinating. And that's what we're going for.
And then how many issues are you planning for your series?
Kill Stand is 10 issues.
Okay.
All 10 are written. We've got number 2 is being worked on by my artist right now. And then we'll, after that, we've got another project coming down the pipeline, probably with a different artist. Not that I don't want to work with my artist again. My artist is phenomenal. I want to work with him on more projects, but every project I have planned out, and I have quite a few written, is going to be, I want to be different themes, different tones, and different artists, because I want them to have a specific feel. So we'll be, Ed died again. We'll be, that internet, and you got to get off that cricket internet, Ed. You gotta get on, where's that Starlink? Come on. I think he'll come back. We'll get him back in a second. Oh, he's back. That's okay. We'll work with other artists on the next project. Again, I do want to continue working with my artist Felipe Sobriera from this project in some capacity, and there's other projects I have coming that I'd like him to be the main artist on. But the next project I have after this has a very different tone and texture. So I want a different style on it. And
and that's the thing. Each artist can bring something particular to the book you're working on, because I've worked with the same artist on my 2 main series, but I have 2 new series coming out where I'm going to be working with different artists, because I need a different tone or vibe on those ones. So it's good, because you can get lots of artists employed and keep them working. So both these projects look great. I'm sure both will get funded, because they're both, one is funded, one's on a good pathway toward it. Once I back for $400, you'll be fine. So
luckily we funded here in 5 days, which was amazing. I was really thrilled with that. So there's plenty of time for people to get on board still. It's a low barrier to entry, as little as $10 for the digital copy, $20 for a physical copy, and that includes shipping. There's a preview on the Kickstarter, so if anyone wants to take a look at that, you can get an idea of the art, the color tone and texture, which we spent a lot of time finding also. And like I said, I think it's a story that if anyone reads, they'll connect to in some way. And especially if you read that whole first issue, when you read the ending of number 1, you're going to want to know what happens.
See, that's leave them wanting more. That's the way to do it. I always end my issues with a big cliffhanger, and I usually when I would end a story arc, I wouldn't do a big cliffhanger. But now that I'm finishing the second story arc of Immortal Era, I'm like, all right, if you've been in for 12 issues, then I'm cliffhanging you. You know 13's on the way. So yeah, just constantly make them want more. And that's, I look forward to reading both of these. They sound like great series. They both kind of appeal to different parts of me. The 80s kid who was playing D&D, Scott's book is right up my alley. And then just kind of that deeper themed stuff. Cause yeah, like you said, COVID left scars on everybody. I see it as a teacher. I see the scars that it left on the students when they had to spend time staring at a screen, because the class I'm teaching now would have been kindergartners during COVID. So they lost all those social pieces that they should have had. And that's just one aspect of society. It's a domino that goes everywhere, and just what was left and how we recover from it. It's throwing those kind of themes into a book are always powerful.
Yeah, well, I always say, like, the worst thing that ever happened to you is still the worst thing that ever happened to you, And what I mean by that is you don't always have to have this big traumatic, I was coming out of Casablanca with my parents and this villain shot my parents in an alleyway behind the theater. Like that's not always the impetus of why you have trauma, trauma can be low grade, trauma can be incremental. And those things, there's those things can add up, and it's not always some big catastrophic event which has to be why you feel lost, or why you feel like you don't belong, and why you feel like maybe you want to end it all, and where you find potential relief from that. So those are all things that I talk about in this book, and veiled through allegories and metaphors, but that's what this book is about. So it's not even like, man, you have to have some huge trauma to feel like you justify why you feel the way you feel. You can feel the way you feel because, comparatively in your life, things have happened that you weren't equipped to deal with. So that's okay. And there's, let's figure it out.
All right. Good morning, David. And then we had the Classic Comic Collector. Say hi. And
that was me.
That's you?
Yeah.
All right. And then Silver Knight Kyle. Thanks for watching, everyone. So we're going to close it out now. So you can tell people where we can find you. And we know, of course, to find you on the Kickstarter, but what is your other social media? So Scott, tell people where they can find you.
As I was just saying, Classic Comic Collector is my handle on YouTube. So you can check out my YouTube channel there. I talk about indie comics and making comics, but also I show a lot of stuff from my collection, a lot of back issues, a lot of complete runs. I'm right in the middle, showing off one of my big inspirations for Quest. I've got a complete run of Conan the Barbarian. So I'm in the process of doing videos where I show all 275 issues of that. So if you like back issues and classic comics, you can check me out there, or you can go to crimebustercomics.com is my website where I've got all my comics that I've made over the last 5.5 years. So you can get that stuff there and look into that. And of course you can see my current Kickstarter quests currently live until the 18th.
Awesome. So Dees, where can we find you?
Yeah, guys. As for the comic book, it's Kill Stan on Kickstarter. Like I said, low buried entry, as little as $10 to get your copy, digital copy. You can find us at inferno.earth on Instagram, Inferno Comics on Facebook, and our website is inferno.earth. There's no .com. It's just inferno.earth is the domain now. I'll also be doing a couple conventions coming up next weekend. October 5th, I'll be at Comic Book Arts San Antonio, one-day festival on October 5th in San Antonio, Texas. I heard a little rumor that if you are there, you may be able to get an early copy of Kill Stan. Might be the first place to get physical copies of that book. So come say hi there. I'll also be at Fan Expo in Dallas, October 19th and 20th, I believe it is. So come through there. We'll definitely have physical copies for that. That'll be after the Kickstarter is done. But the Kickstarter is running through October 16th. So did we lose Ed again? We lost Ed again. I'll wait a second so we can get this live on his, I assume. Or I don't know if this is still going live to anyone. Silver Fox, Silver Knight, are you still out there, Kyle? I don't know how technology works, guys. I'm Mexican with a GED. What do you want from me? So anyway, Dallas Fan Expo, 19th and 20th. Check that out. And then also check me out, guys. I do stand-up comedy. So that's my job, where I'm at, everywhere, all the time. Go to deececomedy.com. Check out all the live dates coming up. And you can follow me at deece.comedy on Instagram. Deece Casillas on Facebook, all that stuff. I do have a comedy special we released recently. It's called Not Your Cup of Tea. You can get that on my website also. Right now we're doing Name Your Price, so you can pay whatever you want for it. You'll get a digital download to keep forever of the special. Just click on the Not Your Cup of Tea tab on my website and pay $1, pay $5, pay $10, whatever you want, and you'll get the hour special forever. But yeah. That's it.
Sounds great. Thank you for talking, because my internet is lovely today.
Yeah.
It's going out. So yeah. So thank you guys for being on. I really appreciate it. If you want to find me, everything's under Finish Line Comics on all the different social medias. Definitely follow my YouTube channel. We're building up. I have some mini 1-minute reviews there of different comic books. If you want to have your book reviewed, send me a message. I can do a 1-minute review of one of your books. And all of these live streams are all archived there. So thank you for tuning in today, and have a great weekend.